Welcome to the Grit and Grow podcast, where we talk to guests who are pursuing excellence in both sport and life, who encourage and motivate us to become better mentors, coaches, parents, and athletes. My name is Shane Sowden, head men's basketball coach at Briarcrest College, and also your co-host.
And my name is Justin Simpkins, co-host and director of Prairie Hockey Academy.
On today's episode, we have Lisa Thomaidis, longtime coach of the University of Saskatchewan women's basketball program and national champion.
Yeah, national champion. I mean, we're talking 16 of the last 17 years she's taken her program to the national championship. This was an awesome interview, Shane. I actually couldn't believe that a woman who has some of the best recruiting classes year after year told us that her least favorite job in coaching is recruiting as an introvert. This was jam-packed with stuff. What was your biggest takeaway?
I just really enjoyed hearing the stories over 27 years of coaching, of building a program, empowering athletes, treating them with respect, and then just the different stories from coaching in the Olympics to getting things started here at the grassroots level in Saskatchewan. So many fun insights, and really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, head coach of the women's basketball team, the national program in Canada, a couple Olympics, now with Team Germany. Listen up, if you're a student athlete that hopes to play for Lisa someday, start doing your chores today. It's a big piece of her recruitment. She finds girls every single year that are hardwired to believe in themselves and that they're going to win every game. This was an awesome episode. So much to take away. Enjoy. Well, Lisa, welcome to the Grit and Growth podcast. We are thrilled to have you join us, a coach of your caliber and experience. I think today's episode is going to have a lot for our coaches that listen, parents and student athletes as well. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate the invite. And yeah, hopefully I can share a bit and some stuff will resonate, and happy to help.
Yeah, we've got a lot that we want to get into today. I just think that the detail and the preparation that you bring as a coach, there's some theory on the basketball side that I want to kind of ask you about a bit. But I think, for a lot of our listeners, I'd love to get a little bit of your story, actually, going back, just even telling us your story, how you got into, you played basketball yourself. You're from Ontario.
Yeah.
But then, you went to play pro back in your father's homeland in Greece. And tell us a little bit about the story and how you got into coaching, because you're now 27 years into being the head coach at the University of Saskatchewan.
Yeah, crazy. Like you said, I was fortunate enough. I played at McMaster University, graduated there, and, really wasn't sure that I was done. I was probably a late bloomer, just really kind of getting into playing pretty well towards the end of my career, and was still healthy and didn't really know what I wanted to do professionally. And so I ended up assistant coaching for a year with Teresa, my coach at McMaster. And funny enough, the FIBA AmeriCup was being hosted at McMaster the year after I graduated. And I happened to see that there were a few players from the Canadian national team that were playing in the Greek league at the time. And so that kind of sparked my interest in looking into it to see if I could manage to land a contract there. And certainly with my dad being Greek and having Greek roots, thought that might be a bit of an in for me. And so was able to get a bit of a tryout, or flew over for a tryout and got a contract, and managed to play there for 2 seasons, about a season and a half. And unfortunately I got injured and couldn't continue on. And so I was 25, 26 at the time, and I had done a little bit of coaching with provincial team here in Ontario, and my coach had told me about this position at U of S that came up and told me I should apply. And I thought, well, there's no way, I'm not ready to be a university coach. And I waited to the very end, and the very last day when the applications were closing, I ended up putting my resume forward and didn't know anything about the U of S program, and got an interview, ended up getting the job. One thing led to the next, and I landed myself out in Saskatoon without knowing anyone and without knowing anything about the program, really, which was probably a really good thing at the time, seeing as the U of S was struggling.
I was going to say that. I mean, nobody knew anything about the U of S program.
Yeah, it was tough times back then, for sure. At 26, I was a head coach, and really didn't know what I didn't know. And, as I think many coaches find, you end up coaching the way you've been coached. And that's kind of the extent of your preparedness and lead up into coaching. And thankfully for myself, I had an amazing university coach in Teresa Burns, who just retired from McMaster. She was an amazing mentor and role model for me. And I think set myself up to be able to take on the task of being a head coach at such a young age.
Well, I want to back up just a little bit there. So you're a U Sport female head coach at the age of 26.
Yeah.
And you say you didn't really have an idea of what you wanted to do for an occupation quite yet. Your last few years at McMaster go really, really well. You go overseas and you play. Was there a moment or an influence? Was it not maybe till you came back and helped out Teresa? Like, was there a moment or you're like, no, I think this might be a path I want to take?
At the time when I was playing and then when I got injured, I think a lot of times when you're an athlete and you're playing for different coaches, you get to learn how you don't want to be as a coach. Let's put it that way. So as much as you kind of take things from great coaches around, what you want to emulate and how you want to be, there's also experiences where you're like, whoa, I definitely would not want to be like that. And so there were some times for sure playing in Europe where that's more of the thinking. After injury, it forces you into thinking about what's next. And I think for me, I love being a professional athlete, even though it was such a short career for me, just the opportunity to see the world, to train, to make money doing what you love, meeting new people. Just the whole life experience part was just incredible for me. And it was such an interesting time because at that point, it was the year, my second year in Greece was the year that the WNBA started. And so my roommate at the time was an American, and one of her friends was actually going to be in the WNBA. She knew she had a contract. And so there was a little bit of a connection there. So I got to hear a bit about this WNBA and what was going to be happening. And it was just like surreal. Again, at the time when I was coming through high school and university, it just seemed like if you wanted to play pro, you could go to Europe and play a few years. And for sure you could make a decent living, but you knew it was going to be short-lived. So with the WNBA coming on, it was just this really exciting time. But yeah, like I said, once you get injured, it really forces you to think about the reality of what's next. And so, yeah, definitely it was Teresa, the athletic director at McMaster at the time, Therese Quigley, another really influential woman in my life at the time, also really encouraged me to apply. And so, back in those days, when you looked at who the coaches were around the country, a lot of them were very long-serving coaches that were maybe faculty members at the time, had been there for 20, 25 years, a lot of the positions in Ontario. And so as a student athlete, you never really looked at coaching as a potential career path just because there were so few opportunities. And the ones that were out there, people didn't leave. There wasn't much turnover. And so it was kind of looked at as maybe kind of a lottery if you ever landed a position. And so that was kind of my thinking, I think, going in. But again, got real lucky. I think it was right place, right time. U of S was looking for something completely different, took a real flyer on someone not from Saskatoon or Saskatchewan. And lucky for me.
Well, okay. How'd that conversation go? Like you're 1 year at McMaster as an assistant coach. You apply on the last day that the job's open. And I don't, the internet was just kind of kicking off at that time.
Yeah.
I'm doing my homework this morning. The year before they're 4-16, 2 years before that 1-19, 3 years before that 2-18. So 7-53 over 3 years. What's that? Like you're sitting in Teresa's office or living room or whatever. And she's like, hey, I think you should apply for this. And you look it up and you're like, oh my goodness. And what's the conversation there? What's the, one, you're super young, not a ton of coaching experience yet in a program that needs a lot of help.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like? Was it excitement? Was it fear? Was it a little bit of both? Was it like,
To
this is
be honest,
crazy?
I don't even know if I knew the record of the team before I applied.
Maybe
Like
that was a
to
good
me,
thing.
it was I'm no longer a professional athlete. I need a job. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I'm going to throw my name in there. We'll see what happens. Got the
But like,
interview. And then I think it was once I got the job is when I really started to look into what did I get into here? So, yeah, I mean, I think they were, again, not really looking for a great coach at the time. I think it was more just someone who could maybe come in and lead and just have a different approach and work their butt off and see what we could do. I think they, when I was hired, it was a 3-year contract. And I remember getting
Mhm.
dropped off at the airport thinking, well, I'll be back in Ontario in 3 years. I'll do this and see what we can do.
Mhm.
But I mean, the expectations were very low.
Yeah.
and like you said earlier, I mean, a young coach, you just don't know what you don't know yet,
Yeah.
um, including maybe what your roster looked like. What how many scholarships are given out, what kind of financial bursary aid you even had to give
Yeah.
out, what your alumni class. I mean, as a U sport coach or a collegiate coach, there's a lot on your plate. I think a lot of people don't recognize just how hard
Yeah.
a girls'
There's a
high
lot.
school basketball
There's
coach
a lot.
works, never mind a college coach, right? With just the recruiting and the alumni efforts and the planning and just your travel and your exhibitions, everything you're building. It's not, it's about 10% basketball,
Yeah.
and the rest, and the rest is
Yeah.
people, right?
What are you
Yeah.
talking about? What are
For
you talking
sure.
about?
And
So,
even, back then, the recruiting piece, I can tell you what I had for scholarship. I had one $3,500 scholarship. And at that time, I think when I was hired, the best player, one of the best players in Saskatoon, graduating players, Nicole Poyer, I think she had already committed to go to Regina. And
Mm.
so Ross Wilson, who was the athletic director who hired me, he was quick on this. And he said, listen, like, we have this one scholarship. This is the player we need to keep. We got to try and go after her. And so we were able to get her to stay, thank goodness. But it wasn't like juggling a whole bunch of scholarship money. It was, okay, we've got one for like a blue chipper.
Wow.
Hopefully she can stay. And, it's so true what you said. Like, coaching now is 90% everything else and probably 10% basketball. At that time, the recruiting wasn't nearly as big as it is right now.
No.
I think the program had really gone through, okay, if you're from Saskatoon and you're a good high school player, hey, come to U of S. And so when I landed there, this is the roster I have. And it took me a few years to really dive into recruiting more seriously. I mean, for me, I'm hardwired as an extreme introvert. And so recruiting is it definitely is the least favorite
Hmm.
part of the job. Like it takes everything in me to pick up a phone and call someone and try and convince them to come to
Wow.
you. I was really lucky though. Like my first year, my assistant coach was the assistant for the previous coach, and he was there as a medical student. His name's Ron Taylor, and he's in Regina right now.
Okay.
But he saved my butt big time because he knew the players. The players respected him, and he just knew the lay of the land, And so without him, I would have been sunk. But he was such a great help for my first couple of years. What a great guy too. I mean, just completely selfless. Worked with the student athletes and just such a great guy. So I was really, really fortunate to have him right off the hop.
So I'm curious, like, you come in, obviously there needs to be like a culture reset, maybe like new standards, higher expectations, whatever that is. And, it's fascinating that Ron played a massive role in helping with the recruiting piece because, I have more questions about the recruiting piece because, and obviously as you get better, better players want to come. But I was looking down the list. I was looking at all the different U of S like individual records this morning, and just some names that I hadn't thought about in a few years, like Sarah Crooks. Remember her back then? I was like, oh my god, and that's when you guys really started to take off a little bit. Recently, Summer Maskowicz, Jill Humbert, Ashley Duchak, Jacqueline Lavallee. Did Jacqueline actually play for you?
She did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sorry, I'll let you continue.
Oh, and then like my favorite is Libby Epic. Just because,
Okay.
Libby,
First off.
Yeah. Libby came to our camps when I was coaching the women. And she came as a 12-year-old, which was fairly young because we have a 1 week overnight camp. And as a 12-year-old, we bumped her up with like the grade 11 and 12s because I was like, hey, she's just better than everybody else.
Totally.
And I was fortunate to have her on my team that week. And I just remember after a little bit, I just said, Kate, Libby, I'm giving you free reign. I know you're younger than all these girls. I trust you, but like you can leave your check whenever you want. If you see an opportunity, be aggressive, be creative, and you just see her eyes light up. And I was just like, just go. And it was just fun to see her. I ran into her a few years ago. It was good to just have a little chat with her, but to see her success. And I think her last year was, you guys win nationals?
That was actually her second last year.
Second last year. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but just to see her, and I think all 5 of her seasons, just like the assists, like over 100 or more every year. Like, anyways, some crazy,
incredible. Yeah. And like when you list off those names, so many of them, it's like if they didn't come to us, wow, where would we have been? Like they were just absolutely transformational student athletes and leaders, especially like in Libby's situation here, like just an incredible leader. We won in her time, in her 5 years, we won 4 Canada West championships.
Yeah.
The only Canada West championship we lost when she was on our roster was when she blew out her ankle the week before Canada West and she couldn't play.
Right.
And I mean, that just speaks volumes there. Just her intelligence, her leadership, her ability to run the team, just off the charts. And yet, she certainly doesn't pass the eye test. You don't look at her walking down the street and think, oh, she's one of the best players in Canada right now. But an incredible player to have, an incredible person. She's done so well. I mean, engineering, and graduated from there, and over and playing professionally this year in Germany. So I still haven't seen her. So I'm looking forward to seeing her when she gets back and hearing her stories.
Well, I know when I ran into her, she's always asking if she can come run with our guys. Nice. I said, if we were in the summer, we could, because I only have like one local guy. Everybody else is around the country and the States, but whatever.
Yeah.
But she's looking for that competition. But that speaks to like the whole recruiting piece. Like you said it there, like we all knew she was a strong high school player and could make an impact at the U Sport level, but she made an impact at the U Sport level as a freshman on a very strong team right away. And she's so quiet, but always smiling, and just love hearing did you see something different in her when you talked with her, where you're like, hey, this girl has some hidden qualities that I think maybe some other coaches aren't picking up on. And is that something, as you've grown more confident in the recruiting piece? Because, I'll be honest, there's sometimes like I look at your recruiting class every year, because I'm curious, and again, I'm on the guy's side, but I'm always just where are coaches drawn from? And sometimes I scratch my head and I'm like, is that program even that good? And then 2 years later, she's putting up unreal numbers.
Yeah.
Of course you get like the internationals and all that kind of stuff and some of the bigger names, but I always find you're landing 1 or 2 ladies every year that eventually make a pretty good impact that you're almost like the only one that's in on. And so just speak to that whole recruiting piece and just finding those little intangibles.
Yeah, Libby was really sought after coming out of high school. Everyone was after her. But at the same time, she's small, she's light. You don't know how that's going to translate. Yeah, she dominated in Saskatchewan high school, but really, what does that mean from a national perspective? 100%. Like, really, can she step up to U Sports and translate? Or can her skills translate? And then she made the U19 team with Summer, and they ended up being bronze medalists at World Championships at the U19 level. And there was an incredible Canadian team that she was on. Verticraft team was amazing. Yeah. But it was funny because she came in 2017. 2016 was our very first national championship. And we graduated almost everyone from that team. Like that was Laura Daly, that was Dallas Emerson, Kelsey Trollsrud, Taya Kujer, like the list goes on. And I was just always thinking, holy cow, what's it going to be like next year? Like we're not going to have any of these players. But what kept me really excited was knowing that Libby and Summer were coming in. And, I usually say to our recruits, like, there's no one that can step in as a first year and make an impact on
Mhm.
on any team that's good. But those two proved me wrong. We won a
Right.
Canada championship with them as first years in the starting lineup.
Wow.
So yeah, just amazing. As far as like the other, the players that you spoke about that, okay, they maybe make our roster, but you really don't hear about them until 2 or 3 years down the road.
Mm.
Those are the ones that I have that are you just are so proud of because,
Mhm.
for our program, you have to bring in some local talent. Like you just have to keep the community
Mhm.
engaged, and our community is so important to us. They make playing at the U of S, they make being a U of S student athlete super special.
Right.
And so for us, we have to make sure we don't just have players from all around Canada and the world. Like, you can't just have that as your roster. And so the great thing about the Saskatchewan athletes is that they're used to work and they're
Mhm.
going to put in the time. And so for them, a lot of them, it's just we're going to make you into a great player, or we're going to make you into a great role player. Maybe we'll have some stars around you, but you're going to be able to go out and compete.
Right.
And like I'd say, Anna Melda was a perfect example of that on our team this year. She came in her COVID year. She was a first year with like Taya and Gage and Courtney Primo and those guys. And in 2020, we were not even training together as a team. Like just with our first years, we were able to get together in small groups and we do
Mhm.
some 4-on-0 and things like that.
Yeah.
But she was so underskilled at the time. Like she had no handle. She was on the sideline working on ball handling and on another court working on form shooting. She could,
Yeah.
like, her range was free throw line.
Yeah.
And now, like, she was 7 for 17 from the 3-point line this year in Ken West
Mhm.
League play. And she just, this is 5 years that she's put into this. And now she played in a national championship game. Like she's a national champion.
Yeah.
And so like we have to have those types of players that are just willing to work and willing to be patient and know that it's going to pay off and be super rewarding at the end of it. But some it just takes longer. And, there's many people that would never stick it out that long. They'd pack it in, they want to play right away. But, it's those ones that have that character, like the Saskatchewan athletes that I just love working with because they're grinders and they're going to get it
Yeah.
done and super rewarding by the end of their careers.
Love that. We see that a lot, even with some of the student athletes we've recruited. There's that blue collar nature of Saskatchewan,
Yeah.
whether they come from a farm or anything, but just this
Mhm.
Yeah.
that the harvest is down the road, and we got to put the work in.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
So
I was saying earlier this year when we were talking about recruiting, I almost want to have like, okay, the very first question is, did you do chores as a kid?
Oh
'Cause
yeah.
if you didn't do chores, I don't even want to talk to you. Like, you're not going to fit in here.
Yeah. We're throwing bales. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
yeah,
Sarah Crooks was milking cows. Like, it's crazy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
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 This is awesome. I think you talked originally at the start. You signed. You came in. You signed a 3-year contract to start. You thought, hey, I'll be back in Ontario in 3 years. Here you are, 27 years later, and Saskatoon's
Yeah.
become a home for you. You've made a huge impact. It would seem that your first 5 years with the Husky program, it was a slow build. But
Yeah.
just hearing you talk about some of the recruiting and hearing you talk about some of recognizing that, again, the harvest isn't right away, and just the development of seeing little gems in the recruits that you're bringing in and going, hey, maybe you're not an elite skill, highly sought after, prospect right now, but I see something in you. And if you
Yeah.
put the work in, you're going to see that. How really, I mean, when did it change from this is a 3-year gig to, wait a second, I'm starting to see a bit of a longer term focus here. And I'm going there a little bit because I just look back and I remember reading books about even John Wooden, right? People look at John as this one of the greatest coaches of all time in NCAA basketball. But I think it was like 15 seasons before he won a championship.
Hmm.
I think even like in the first 12 or 13 seasons, I think he only made it to the tournament 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
But there was
Losing record for the first few years.
right, but there was a
Yeah.
long-term focus, right? And he details that a lot. So I kind of want to hear Lisa's long-term focus and when did that start to shift in you?
Right away when like the very first team I had some pretty special athletes. Like Allie Fairbrother was in her 5th year.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, whoa, like she's a better player than I've coached before and probably played against at the university level anyway. Jackie LaValle, same thing. We had Claire Dore, we had Carla Pitts, and then we had Nicole Poyer as like a first year, Lauren Evans. So there was a good core there. And they were just, so hungry to learn and to be great and to just like get better. And so they were such a wonderful group to start with because they were super competitive, had a tremendous, appetite for putting in the work. And, we just saw little gains here and there. And they were really committed. And for me, like I'm a very loyal person. Obviously, I've been at the same place for 27 years now. So when you start to see little improvements like that, you start to think, oh man, like maybe we can, just get a little bit better and a little bit better. Because honestly, the first couple of years, we'd step into the gym and see the U of Cs and the UVics and the UBCs and the Albertas and be like, okay, like we just do not have what they have. Like we're not even close. How are we ever going to compete with them? But the thing is, playing against the best teams, and again at that time, Canada West was the powerhouse of women's basketball. There were 6 teams. And there were no easy games, especially for us. Like we were the weak sister, essentially, that teams came in and knew they could pound by 30 and it was a guaranteed win. Right. But the one thing about playing against the best teams in the country every weekend is you're forced to figure out like, where's the gap and how can we problem solve? Like, how can we, like, this is what we have. These are the players we have, but those aren't changing. How can we work smarter? How can we close the gap? How can we just be, figure things out and get it done that way? And so and the work ethic piece was again the foundational piece of our culture right from day one. So I think that was the great thing in terms of my development as a coach is that you're constantly challenged to just figure out how you can close the gap. And we kind of knew we weren't going to be getting these incredible recruits at that time that were going to change anything quickly. It was more just we've got to work harder and smarter and get it done in the off season. And so, yeah, we just we kind of kept making small gains, but then we got lucky. And it really was when Sarah Crooks and Ashley Duchek both landed on campus at the same time in their first year, and that was the turning point. Right. Because we had a crew that had been working hard and developing. And unfortunately, Jackie LaValle had graduated the year before Sarah and Ashley came. But even those two, that was a stroke of luck too, because Ashley had actually committed to go to an NC2A school. And her family's from Saskatoon, and I'd been in contact with them. And she came in for a visit because we were actually recruiting one of her teammates. Sometime in the summer, the coach where she had committed to had been let go. And so there was a coaching change and she wasn't sure if her scholarship was still going to be honored. And so decided to come to U of S. And it was an incredible combination with those two. And it's funny because, Sarah Crooks was the Nan Kopp Award winner in 2006 and 2007. Yeah. And it took almost 20 years before we had another Nan Kopp Award winner in Gage Grassick. But both were from rural Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Like, who's thinking that you're finding the player of the year off a farm or a ranch in Saskatchewan? Yeah. Like, just unheard of. Yeah. But that was definitely a bit of a tipping point, I'd say, for our program.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody's watched the League of Their Own if they're not thinking that's where you find the player.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
But I think I've quoted this numerous times that Jimmy Devellano, he was the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings for a number of years, and he joined them when they were terrible. And then, kind of his first pick was Steve Yzerman, which led to 19 years in a row of playoff hockey.
Yeah.
But he came from the New York Islanders, and he said what he learned with the Islanders when they had won 4 or 5 Stanley Cups was that the key to success is you get good players, and then you keep good players.
Yeah,
and that's how you build a championship mentality and roster. But things have to happen for you to close that gap, right? There has to be pieces inside of your program development so that you can get those good players, because it's a competitive field to attract them. So you'd obviously started to build a culture and some values, and it makes me like, what were the values of Husky basketball at that point in time that you had started to build into it to attract these female athletes, and have they
Yeah.
changed?
Yeah. It certainly wasn't the facilities or the supports that we had back then, because you're coming to a place that had the worst gym in the conference
I
and
remember that place.
probably the least amount of scholarship money. But yeah, it's like those diamonds in the rough combined with the ones that, are just putting in the work every single day to get a little bit better, a little bit better. I think it's, again, that underdog mentality where you're always fighting and scrapping and knowing that you've got to be that much more connected. I think our players really liked playing with one another. I think they really enjoyed the experience. I think they felt supported by our coaching staff. We were really invested in them. We'd always say as coaches, it didn't matter, whatever your goals are, we're here to support them. We're going to help you get there no matter what. And we'll do anything in our power to help you get there. So if that means like coming in at 6 a.m. to do a workout because you have to work at 7, we're going to do that. We're going to come and meet you and do that. And I think, just each and every year, the new players got to see what the older ones had done and how much they had invested in the work that they'd put in. And then that just becomes the norm. And then with each passing year, I think the importance on just acknowledging and recognizing the players that had come before them and what they had gone through and what they had given back to the program to make them appreciate, hey, we're in a pretty good situation and it's our job to leave this place in a better spot than when we found it. So and then that really engaged our alumni. I think, just that approach resonated with the people in Saskatoon and Saskatchewan and basketball people and our alum. And it just kind of continued to grow to now we're at the point where, we're selling out our gym for Can West playoffs and championships. It's pretty special.
So the people, right? So it was the people that mattered, right? From your coaching staff, but your team. They'd obviously created an environment where there was a lot of camaraderie. The girls like to be together, and it really sounded like some servant leadership from yourself and others. That we're just going to do what we need to do to help you achieve your goal. Like, what's your dream? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
If you put the work in, I'll be there with you. That could be 6 a.m. And then that, I mean, you have to have a proud alumni group to know that they went from where they were in the worst gym in the Canada West, as you said, to where you get to be now. And they know that because they just had that blue collar mentality. Because I kind of think sometimes Saskatchewan people aren't always impressed with the glitz and the glam. Like, you can take me out to UVic or anywhere and show me all this. Then I come back and I'm like, I kind of just want to work in this hard knock space of the school gym. Right? We have that. There's a little bit of that maybe and that underdog, as you said. So
For sure.
It's pretty neat. That's a great.
Well, a little bit of the chip on your shoulder too. So Lisa, like you come in 1998 and like you said, the girls are hungry. Like they want more.
Yeah.
Was there maybe with that first group in the first few years or when Sarah and Ashley came in, but like, I'm just thinking back, like the program I'm coaching right now, we had this moment like over the last 2 years, like in some ways similar to just the first few years of your growth, really struggling, building up, not a lot of success before I took over, and then start to win some more games, start landing recruits, have a few of those stories where guys just put in the time and all of a sudden become a key part of your roster. Then you're able to add a couple pieces and off you go.
Yeah.
But what I found this year was there was this moment in January. We won a couple big games against some ranked opponents. And all of a sudden it was like the conversation switched from, hey, can we maybe do this? Or can we compete at this level? To like, we think we got something here. And we started to really believe, no, like we could be that team to beat now.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just see it in the way we showed up at the gym, the way we showed up to film sessions, the way we showed up to practice, to like, it was just, there was just something, there was a switch in mentality where it went from like, can we do this to like, yeah, we can.
Yeah.
What was there a moment that in your mind where like, hey, that kind of happened?
I'd say that the Sarah Ashley group, like from first year to their 5th year, they were together for most of it. And each year was a progressive improvement. And so they had this belief that they were going to be able to do it. And their fourth year was the first time we won Canada West Championship. We had to go out to UBC to play, and we were the fourth seed. And we ended up, and at that time, I think 3 teams out of 4 would qualify towards the U Sport Championship. So we had to win 1 game. So I remember thinking going in, well, we're playing Simon Fraser. Simon Fraser were national champions. I remember thinking, okay, well, if we lose that one, we just have to win the one on the Saturday. And we ended up beating Simon Fraser on the first day. And to me, it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even kind of think about that possibility. And then we ended up beating UBC on their home court for Canada West Championship and getting to nationals. But it was this just, I think, growing level of confidence. Ashley and Sarah were both very confident people. We had Amy Prokop at the time was, I think, a first-year point guard. And she was also very confident, had a lot of success in high school and in provincial team. And so we had a confident group that there wasn't a lot of self-doubt. I even remember talking to Jackie LaValle, like in my first year and her third year, she said she went into every game thinking we were going to win. Like, it's just, these people are hardwired just a little bit differently, right? And so when you can now get a few of those people together on the same team, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And I'd say early on, we had a couple that thought that way and were hardwired. And progressively over the years, we've just gotten more and more. The belief in being able to do it, the self-confidence, but also the like very deep-seated competitiveness that they have. That, in practices were as competitive as any game we played in. They just like went to war. And so it was, I think just accumulating those types of personalities. And it's incredible what you can do when you have those types of people together working towards a common goal.
Thank you so much for tuning in to part 1 of our episode today with Lisa Thomaidis. Join us again next week, same time, same place, as we finish off this episode with part 2.